The Leica 50mm Summicron is one of the most well-known lenses in the world of photography. Many people would argue that of all the lenses that Leica makes, it has the absolute best balance between size, sharpness, and aperture. This lens is an absolute staple in the world of photography. However, depending on which variant of the lens you're looking at purchasing, it can cost brand new anywhere between $2,700 or $11,000. This price point is far out of reach for many people, including myself. So it begs the question, what alternatives are out there and what is the best alternative to the Leica Summicron 50mm? In comes the Zeiss 50mm f2 ZM. This is a fantastic lens for the Leica M mount system. It's available in both silver and black and retails brand new for right around $900, but can be found used on eBay and various other sites for right around $600. Now the question is, does this lens stack up at all with the much more expensive Leica Summicron? I personally think it does, and we're going to talk quite a bit about that. But before we jump into it, definitely consider going down below and giving the video a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it big time, and it really, really helps out the channel. Thanks, guys. First things first, let's talk about build quality. This thing is incredibly well made. It's 100% constructed of metal, including the lens mount, which you would expect for any Zeiss lens. Zeiss makes some incredible lenses, and this one is absolutely not any exception whatsoever. The aperture ring is located right on the front of the lens. It has a really nice tactile feel to it, and it has some solid, smooth clicks. It isn't too dampened, but it does feel really solid when you're clicking through the aperture range, and I think it has the perfect feel for just about any aperture ring. The fact that it has this really nice knurled design makes it super easy to feel for the aperture ring when you have your eye up to the viewfinder, and it makes sure that your fingers don't slip at all when you're changing aperture. The focus ring is super well dampened, and it actually comes with this built-in little metal focus tab that allows for you to easily acquire focus when you have the lens up to your eye. I usually keep it over here on the far right hand side, and then I just pull it until I've acquired focus, and then you can take a picture. Super well designed. I really like how it also has that nice knurled metal design, and this tiny little focus tab is definitely a nice touch rather than just grabbing onto the entire ring itself. And finally, the lens matches up really nicely with just about any Leica M mount body. I have the Leica MD, and I chose the silver variant of the lens because there's these nice little silver touches all over the camera itself, and the color of this lens perfectly matches the little silver accents on the camera. But depending on which camera you have, I think that the black or the silver will look fantastic on it, and it definitely doesn't stand out as not being a Leica lens. Now let's jump into ergonomics. So like I mentioned earlier, the aperture ring has this really nice knurled design so that when you're focusing on something and you go and you reach for the aperture ring, you can guarantee that you're gonna feel for it perfectly fine, and you can turn it without any risk of having your fingers slip on it or anything like that. The knurled design, I really like it rather than just having a smooth piece of metal around the lens. Also, as I mentioned previously, the focus ring has this nice little focus tab on it that gives you the ability to easily pull focus when your eye is up to the rangefinder. I do really wish that this lens came with more of an indented focus tab like a lot of Leica's lenses do. It works really well when you're just focusing from infinity to something closer, but when you need to focus further away on something, you do have to bring your second finger, usually my thumb, into the equation rather than just sticking your one finger into the indentation and then being able to pull it back and forth. That's definitely nitpicking, and it's not that big of a deal. It's super easy to just grab it with two fingers and turn it, but I do wish it had more of the indented focus tab like a lot of Leica's lenses do. The one thing that you do need to keep in mind with a rangefinder and using any lens on it is rangefinder blockage. With this lens in particular, there really isn't any rangefinder blockage unless you're focusing on something closer than like 1 meter away. So within the rangefinder window, as you focus on something closer, the window moves closer and closer to the lens itself, and it does block it a tiny bit when you're focusing at something like 1.2 meters or closer. But to be completely honest, I didn't even notice it at all until I started really nitpicking the lens because I was planning to make this video. There's barely any noticeable rangefinder blocking, and it's definitely not something that you're gonna have to worry about with this lens. Now let's talk about image quality. So this lens, just like any other Zeiss lens, really is razor sharp throughout the aperture range. Whether you're wide open at f2 or you stop way down to f8, this thing is guaranteed to be razor sharp. And now, to be completely honest, I'm not really that much of a pixel peeper. However, in preparing for this review, I started really focusing and paying attention to my files, and it absolutely, as long as you nail focus, resolves 100% of this 24 megapixel sensor, regardless of which aperture you're at. F2, it is razor sharp when you nail focus on somebody's face or on any object. And when you're shooting more landscape oriented stuff or things where you want to have a deeper field of view or a deeper focus plane, excuse the terminology, F8 or F11, F16 even, they all look super solid with very little diffraction, even at something like F16. With a 50mm lens and an f2.0 aperture, you're guaranteed to be able to get really nice, pleasing out of focus areas when you're shooting portraits and things of that nature. I've shot a ton of portraits of people as well as of my dogs and stuff like that, and I cannot complain whatsoever about the bokeh. I think it looks really clean, and there's nothing like funky or swirly going on there. I think it looks really solid, and I definitely can't complain about that. And also, if you nail focus at f2.0, you can guarantee, like I mentioned, that your subject in the foreground is going to be razor sharp in focus. So the one interesting thing about this lens is that it's not actually a true 50mm lens. It's actually a tad bit wider. I've noticed a number of times when I'm taking a photo and I try to eliminate a distraction in the frame or something like that, I've noticed when I pull the images onto my computer that thing that I was trying to eliminate is actually still stuck down there in the corner or the side of the frame or something like that. And so I Googled it and I read a number of review sites, and it actually turns out that the actual focal length of this lens is like a 45 or 46mm lens, which actually, now that I know that, I kind of prefer it because I'm one of those people that is always stuck between a 35mm and a 50mm focal length. And so this lens gives me a little bit of a middle ground. Yeah, it is a little bit closer to 50mm than 35mm, but it gives me a bit of a middle ground, which I really like. So to summarize, this is a really amazing lens for the Leica M mount system. If you're a person that doesn't have several $1,000s to drop on a Leica Summicron 50mm, but you want something that packs just about the same punch, I think that this is a fantastic alternative for you. I've been using it now for about 3 or 4 months, and I don't have a single complaint. Oftentimes when I cheap out, not necessarily cheap out because this thing's super expensive, but when I get the lower priced alternative lens, I constantly am regretting it, and I'm thinking, oh man, I wish I had the more expensive lens, yada yada. But with this lens in particular, I have no complaints whatsoever, and I don't plan at all on picking up a Leica Summicron. I feel like there's genuinely no need for it because I really think that this Zeiss 50mm just gets the job done for me. Anyways, guys, thank you a ton for watching. I appreciate it big time as always. If you haven't already, go down below and give the video a thumbs up. I really appreciate it, and it helps out the channel a ton. If you want to see more videos of me talking about photography gear, going on photography trips, and things of that nature, definitely hit the subscribe button down below. I'll link a video here at the end that I think you guys might be interested in, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.